Okay, so I believe you can see the PowerPoint. Okay, thank you so much. So first of all, thank you so much for being here on Friday morning. And thank you, Dr. Lee, for the introductions. I'm Ting, and I'm associate professor at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. And it's a great honor to be here, being invited by the Global Convergence Content Research Center at Sungkyunkwan University to participate this 2024 international conference. I'm very happy, very thrilled to share my recent projects on the news curation. Okay, so basically this is the structure of today's sharing. So I will talk first about the theoretical background of the consumptive newsfeed curation, and then I will share three different studies. So first is about the antecedents of consumptive newsfeed curation, and second is about its effects on cognitive and attitudinal dimensions. Then move on to the third one. It's more about exploring the concept. So in this study, me and my co-author, we try to understand different curatorial behavior and trying to classify the potential group of people out there. So then the very last, it will be the final takeaway, and I hope to invite you all for some further discussion. So since today's topic focus on the curation, so let's take a look at the concept first. Curation, you probably heard it quite often already. It means a careful selection and distribution of news in high choice media environment. So it can be actually in a way like productive or consumptive type. And this term has been used quite often in different type of settings, such as like journalists curate information, or in network community or some social movement activity, how they distribute and disseminate information. So this kind of term is referred to digital media related practices, and now become more and more popular, okay, in the academia also because information overload has become severe. So as a content producer, we need to make and share and select information that is important, meaningful to audiences. But for consumer, they also need to pick information that is useful, helpful, or meaningful to themselves. So digital curation, information curation in the digital area, it's very important because it's a core aspect of the everyday practice and the digital media literacy of citizens nowadays. Okay. Okay, so each platform has different architecture. So this is also not only we curate as a person, but the platform also have different architecture and algorithmic formulas to shape what we can do and cannot do, and shape what we can see, cannot see. Okay, so this is basically also we often use affordance to refer to this kind of architecture or the algorithm. Okay, so move on, narrow down a bit to today's topic, since what we talk about is a curation. And social media makes these concepts even become more heated topics nowadays. Because the curation on social media give different platform, provide us all different kind of informations, and where also a lot of studies like Pew Research has been shown that people obtain news and information through the social media platform. So used to be curation is made by traditional gatekeepers such as like news organizations and journalists to create content. But nowadays, it is often on social media. The information is determined by like social networks, news recommendation algorithm, and some professional communicators. So I wonder maybe you will have some experience like on social media that you incidentally see some friends or some opinion leaders information and then realize that, oh, did I follow that person or did I follow that account? Okay, because you haven't seen that information for so long and it just suddenly pop up. Okay, so we can understand that as a user, we see very small portion of the available contents. So on Facebook, for example, our reading habits and the way interact with different type of curator determine the news feed we can see. Okay, so in this kind of environment, what can we do? Okay, what can we do? So some users would be passively receive news. So this will relate to the popular concept nowadays, the news find me. So we can just lay back, being relaxed, okay, let the content, if it is important enough, it will find you. But it is possible, okay, also we can curate the information, curate the news. There's something we can do to affect the news recommendation system. So that's why bring to the newsfeed curation on social media. And similarly, there are like productive and consumptive type of newsfeed curation. So many studies actually examine productive newsfeed curation, including some like sharing, commenting, producing content basically. Okay, but less study about the consumptive newsfeed curation, like trying to influence the newsfeed that appear on their account, for instance, like changing setting or trying to consume certain articles, read certain article to affect the algorithm or like something like that. Okay, so to be more specific, consumptive newsfeed curation is a practice that highlights users' agency in navigating information flows on algorithmic platforms and their input in shaping what algorithm recommend to users. And the words consumptive and curation highlights the role of news users in personalizing their news diets within the opportunity and constraints of social media affordances. So the screenshot actually from the right side, the figure is what I recently took from Facebook. And I always surprised to the setting. They all constantly update it. So after, for instance, you like a page, you can actually, or follow an account, you will also see that if you go in more detail, you will see there are a lot of different settings you can do actually. Okay, if you don't do anything, it will just default. But then you can actually set the account like a favorite, so that information will often show up in your newsfeed. Okay, and you can also set, oh, you want to get notifications in terms of different type of content. Okay, so there are always different kind of settings that people, users can do. Okay, so most social media sites allow users to give instructions or do some setting regarding their preferred or non-preferred content. Okay. So it is possible that a person can follow certain accounts, some account or users. At the same time, they can also hide or unfollow certain accounts or some offensive posts they don't like. Okay. So in today, oh, sorry. Okay, so in today's media environment where news consumption is highly personalized, whether and how people engage in newsfeed curation shapes the kind of news that reaches different kinds of people. And studies actually have shown that users actively involved in consumptive news feed curation usually have a clear awareness of how the algorithm works, how strong the algorithm can affect them. And also they do have higher preference of news personalization and also some higher level of digital media literacy and efficacy. Okay. So based on our discussion, based on what I shared just before, it's easy for us to assume that consumptive newsfeed curation is selective exposure. And many studies examining consumptive newsfeed curation assume that it is a practice for people to expose themselves to like-minded information. So this is a part, actually, I would like to invite you to think a little bit more with me in terms of its conceptualization and personalization. Because if we look back to the curation concept itself, it's a behavior. We don't actually say what content or what the type of content, okay? So it's rather, I would say, neutral. Because we don't say like, oh, there's some people curate a news that is like-minded, or avoid non-like-minded. So by definitions, by the conceptualizations, and also the operationalizations, okay, we don't kind of assume this bias pattern. So of course, social media platform, the mechanism it works, is pushing people to consume more constant information. But we also need to realize that there is possibility some people would attempt to gain more comprehensive overview of the public affairs instead of reconfirming their existing views. So for instance, in a recent published study using the ANES panel data, me and my co-author actually found that there are around 30% of incongruent partisans. So we call it incongruent because this type of partisans are not effectively persuaded by their opinions of party leaders on some issues, but depends on their own judgment. So although they belong to certain party, but when it comes to some issues, they disagree to their parties. So this type of people, for instance, it is possible they will try to expose themselves to a wider range of perspectives. Okay. So users can try to, different type of user can try to proactively influence the process of automatized personalization. So it depends on what type of people use certain type of curation. Okay, so it is possible people may be motivated to assess a wider range of viewpoints and influence the pre-selection process on social media. Okay, so here is, again, I briefly introduced the concept and then propose my big questions, and I'm bringing to the first study. So the first study is about antecedents, okay? The antecedent in terms of the affective factors. And the collaborator is with my PhD, our PhD student, and Professor Liu from North Dakota. And first, to understand antecedents, okay, we usually will be questioning, okay, to what do usually people do, right? What do people usually do to curate their information? So this is actually just a background introduction, an early study that I did with my colleagues, as we are the partner with Digital News Report, working with the Reuters Institute. And we utilize the data and then trying to understand the consumptive newsfeed curations in 6 Asian societies. So this is an early study, kind of bring up this concept called consumptive newsfeed curation. And you can see that there are 4 items tap into this kind of curatorial behaviors. So it will be like deleting, blocking another users, add, follow, friends, okay, and changing setting to see more, changing setting to see less from some users or organization. So it's rather, I would say, very general term, right? We don't say like what content they avoid, what content they want to see more. It's a very general term in terms of how they change the setting. And also notice that actually 30% of the respondents didn't do anything, okay, across the 6 societies. Okay, so this is some brief introductions. So the very beginning was like, how can I say, like operationalization was quite general. And in that study, very quickly to see that we also trying to find out what predicting consumptive newsfeed curation. And some I would like to highlight here is just the news participations and news avoidance is positively related to this kind of curatorial behavior. So people who actively engage in news and but also at the same time, people who don't want to see news, okay, they actually curate their information environment. So this is some interesting finding that we found before. And some other works from other scholars also tap into the antecedents in terms of, for example, like how confident they are in controlling their information environment, and also for instance like a perceived knowledge affordance, utility, need for cognition. So I would say that these studies, okay, like exploring the antecedents, what will lead to the consumptive newsfeed curation. And these are more into like attitudinal or cognitive perspective. But in here, the study I would like to share first is that we are focusing on the effective psychological process. And in this study, we use a two-wave panels in United States and targeting Facebook users because if you sample general population, then a lot will be non-users, okay? Facebook non-users. And if you ask in the questionnaire, you ask social media in a general term, then when you ask specific activities, people can relate to all different platforms. So it will be a problem. But the issue is if we ask Facebook, we are missing a lot of young people's behavior because nowadays, younger generation getting less and less using Facebook. Okay, so basically this is a two-wave panel with around 1.5 to 2 months gap, and the retention rate is 55% around. Okay, so in this study, we highlight the effective process because we notice that people sometimes, especially a lot of people on social media that they got stressed, right? They got stressed and feel overwhelmed on the social media platform. So in here, we propose that, all focus on Facebook, basically. We propose that social media news use, okay, will lead to people feel afraid they are missing out information, okay, from news and from their networks. And this kind of fear of missing out will lead them to feel very overwhelmed, okay, overwhelmed. And when they feel overwhelmed in terms of the information they have on social media platform, they would in the end tend to curate their information environment or avoid, okay, the information. Okay. So this relationship is quite interesting because at the end, we can actually see it from two different sides. So it is possible that social media users, they are able to strike a balance when they feel overloaded. After overload, they know how to stay informed by curating their information environment and being protected by news avoidance. But we also, in this process, highlighting some concern that these strategies, okay, when you feel stressed, and then it may lead to a biased, personalized bias information environment, especially when put in a moderator, the cross-cutting discussion. We found that when people encounter some different viewpoint, it will encourage them to feel like they are missing out something more and then feel even more overwhelmed by the information. And they may curate the environment or avoid certain type of information. So this is something that is also concerning. So here highlights again the measurement, the operationalization, that we need to know a bit more what type of content people are willing to curate and what type of content people may avoid. Okay. So in general, this is the first study that we're trying to understand what factors, what kind of process, antecedent will lead to consumptive newsfeed curation. Okay. And here comes to the second study that we focus on the impact of consumptive newsfeed curation. So we understand from our study, from other people's work, there are several different mechanisms will lead to consumptive newsfeed curation. Then what will be the outcome? What will be the impact? Oh, sorry. So this is also my collaborator with our PhD student and also Professor Liu. We are using basically the same data set, okay, the one that I just mentioned. And in here, we focus more on the outcome. So to introduce a bit background, okay, we all know if you are doing political communications, we know that the society is healthy when people is well informed. So because people can make proper judgment and decision. So however, sadly, based on many previous findings, we know that the knowledgeable people are actually being attitudinally polarized. So this pattern really interests me and motivate me to conduct many other study with these two outcomes. Okay, so on social media platform, there's a lot of miscalibrations in terms of knowledge. Means that people think they are well informed, but they are actually not. Okay, so this could be affected by news find me perception, that they think that people can just stay on social media platform and knowledge information will come to them. So in this study, we first tap into the objective and subjective knowledge to understand how people think they are informed and if they are actually being informed. And then to understand also their attitude, okay? If they are knowledge or if they perceive themselves knowledgeable, what about their attitude? Are they more polarized or less polarized? Okay. So a little bit more is about why consumptive newsfeed curation could be related to knowledge and polarization. So first is that consumptive newsfeed curation can boost the impression of being informed as news consumers are empowered by social media affordances to create their own information environment. They feel comfortable, okay, this is the environment that I create for myself. And it is also possible because, like we mentioned, the information overload and also through the information circulate through our network, a lot of repetition, right? We don't see just one piece of news in a day. When it's something big happens, everybody's sharing it, circulated on social media. And cognitively, consonant environment is created also on social media because often people have the tendency, right, to like-minded information and hide something that we don't like. So it is very likely that people will create this kind of consonant environment. That may also lead to people be polarized. Okay. Snack news is another concept because some scholar proposed this snack news concept saying that we encounter news on social media. Yes, we got these things, but often users don't go in detail to read it through, to check the background, or to gain more information or explanations of certain events or a certain issue. Okay. And a lot of times, social media platform has a lot of entertainment, non-political information, or even misinformation. Okay, so that is why we are thinking that consumptive newsfeed curation can be related to knowledge and polarization. Okay, so sorry, a lot of text here, but I just want to show you guys about like in detail how these items are measured. Okay. So to understand the impact of consumptive newsfeed curation on knowledge and polarizations, we create a hypothesized model using the OSROR. But before that, I would like to first highlight is this concept, conceptualization, and operationalization. Because as mentioned before, this is a rather kind of new concept, and then a lot of measurements need to be developed and need to be developed in a more specific way. Okay, so if we try to understand like whether curatorial behavior is beneficial or detrimental to the society, we need to kind of gain a little bit more insight into how it is measured. So on the left side, you can see that the measure, it's about like friend follow a certain users to see more relevant content, or unfriend, unfollow to see less content, delete, block to avoid content, right? Change setting to see more, or change setting to see less, right? So we don't actually see if this kind of content is related to certain political viewpoints. Okay? So to understand the impact, we need to focus on certain type of information, not just information in general. Okay. So on the right side, okay, on the right side, we are there. This is another variable we trying to bring it in, saying that it is possible some kind of mechanism happen after you curate an environment that will lead to the detrimental outcome. Okay, so here is also a measurement that has been used in other study in terms of how people block, okay, or avoid contents because of political viewpoints. So you can see that these are the items tap into the political information filtration. Hidden block someone, some organization because of their political viewpoints. Unfriend someone because of their viewpoints. Okay. So this is all related to political information. Okay. But I would like to highlight is that still we know it's political content, but we also still not specifically know what content it is. But it already kind of narrowed down to from general information, move to political information. Okay, so quickly to just introduce our model is that we use the OSROR to kind of build, not the full model, but trying to understand the process. And here we propose also after exposure, it is possible for people to talk, okay, to talk to others. The information environment we curate can affect the way we talk and whom we talk to. And discussions, we know that it's a reasoning process that will make us reflect on our thinking. And also we can learn a lot about something we don't know, or we can talk to people from different perspectives. So this is a very well-established relationship in terms of how information exposure will lead people to discuss. But in here, we actually would like to see a bit more in terms of the discussions. So we separate it into like-minded and cross-cutting. Okay. So we want to understand like whom we talk to could matter. So after people curate information, it could lead us to filter out certain political views, and this could be more detrimental effect on the society. Okay. So following is that we can see the plus, minus, these are like some the relationship we propose. That consumptive newsfeed curations as a more general kind of behavior, we think that, okay, information exposures will lead to both like-minded and cross-cutting discussion. Because this curation behavior, we can just curate more relevant information, but we don't say that relevant is like-minded or non-like-minded. When we curate an information that is relevant, it could bring us to discuss to someone that is like-minded or cross-cutting. But when it comes to the information filtration, that we filter out certain information because of political viewpoints, then it is likely that we will talk to more people that is like-minded and lessen the chance to talk to people that is non-like-minded. Okay. So here is the full serial mediation we are testing that consumptive newsfeed curation. If it prompts this kind of filtration behavior, that will lead to like-minded discussions more and less cross-cutting discussion. So here comes to the very end. This is a dependent variable. So we can see that on the top. Okay, let me use, okay. So here is the positive, right? Positive. But when it comes to political information filtration, one positive, but the cross-cutting discussion become negative. And the first figure here, these two models here, we see the knowledge as the DV, okay? And we propose as an RQ. So typically discussions, okay, in the literature will enhance people's knowledge. The more you talk to, the more knowledge you gain. But a lot of study actually are based on traditional media. So there's a debate in terms of on social media would enhance knowledge or not. So here, that's why we put the RQ. And then in terms of subjective knowledge, means you perceive yourself being informed, which is likely to happen is that like-minded discussion, no matter whom you talk to, you will feel you gain more knowledge. Okay, so that's why we put like a positive, we propose positive relationship. Okay, and the front will be the same pattern. In the end, in terms of the polarizations, in terms of people's attitude, so like-minded, we know that selective exposures reinforce people's pre-existing political views, make people become less tolerant, so they will become strong, more effectively polarized. But cross-cutting by default, okay, or the deliberative theorists, usually they say that the cross-cutting exposure is supposed to foster respect for different perspective. They will become more tolerant, more cognitive aware of what other side of the opinions. So typically, okay, it will be a negative relationship. Okay, so we follow this line of scholar and propose a negative relationship, but of course we would like to highlight that it is possible some study did find backfire effect. The more people, like-minded people you talk to could make you get anger and become more polarized. You don't buy what other people say, you're just trying to reconfirm your own viewpoints. Okay, so at the end, this is the very final model, and I will also again highlight the conceptualization and operationalization, because as we can see that if it is a neutral term, then it is possible to enhance people different type of discussions, and then the discussion like-minded will enhance people to feel they are more well-informed. However, it will make people to be more polarized. But on the other side, cross-cutting discussion would lessen effective, reduce polarization. Okay, but if it comes to, okay, so political information filtration becomes a turning point. When it leads to people to filter out political information, then we will talk to more like-minded people, then no significant relationship with the cross-cutting one. The like-minded, again, leads to subjective political knowledge, and leads to effective polarization. Okay, so sadly, we don't have any significant path for objective. So people on objective knowledge. So people on social media, basically, that's what other study found. People think they are well-informed, but they are actually not well-informed. Okay. So this is the models that we want to highlight, that there is a miscalibration. We kind of confirm again this type of things, but we also want to highlight that the consumptive newsfeed curation could have a different kind of path. And for scholars to focus on this area, we need a bit clear definitions and also clear, more specific measurement. Okay, so comes to, okay, the third one. Okay, this is the last study that is more about the concept and the measures of the news curation, and also collaborate with our PhD student. So in this study, because we already know about antecedents, we also know about the outcomes. Then we want to, but we notice, okay, there are some issues we need to go more in detail to understand this so-called curation. So in this study, we aim to understand what are the potential type of user in the filter bubbles on social media. So what different behavior do they strategically use to curating their information environment? So we focus on this so-called curatorial behavior first, and then trying to explore what could be the antecedents to affect, to make people to become different group of people that adopt a combinations of curation strategies, and how these different groups would affect political polarization. Okay. So to understand more about the newsfeed curations, we trying to kind of break it down into different dimensions. So not only focus on consumptive, and we also focus on productive. Okay, before we only about consumptive, but we think that if you want to understand curation, maybe we need to comprehensively know about this behavior. So we bring in also the productive one and trying to develop from previous research and adapt some context. And it shouldn't be, because you also notice that in study 2, when it comes to consumptive newsfeed curation, and to be more specific to political information filtration, it is actually possible, this kind of similar, right? This behavior, all kind of similar in terms of changing settings, this kind of things. So we think that maybe the curation, if we be more specific, we can incorporate this filtering concept. So it could be limiting certain opinions, but at the same time boosting certain opinion. So it could be not only filter out certain type of information, but also filter in certain type of information. And to trying to get a little bit more, go more in detail, explore a little bit more, we also conceptually trying to separate it into network-oriented curations and information-oriented curation. So what it means that from this, all the items that I put it here, you can see that on the left side, become friends, unfriending, join a group, leaving a group, follow organizations, or block, unfollow certain organizations. It's all about certain account that we connect to. So we would categorize this as a network-oriented curatorial behavior. And on the right side, you can see there's an informations, okay, curation, is that we can enable some push notifications or trying to search some information on purpose so that the algorithm learn what we prefer and push information that is in line with our opinion. So this is not about network, but this is really about information or hiding, unfollowing certain information. So social media algorithms know that these are the information we don't like, so they will not push this information anymore. So not only on Facebook, I think if you are using YouTube or some other account, you may notice there's a different kind of pattern in terms of network, in terms of information. And the following 4, we include also this productive behavior. Okay, like liking, sharing, leaving comments, or like using some emoji reactions. So these are the including consumptive versus productive, newsfeed curation or limiting, boosting curations, network, and information-oriented orientation. So we believe that a different group of people may adopt different behavior strategy to curate their information environment on social media. So I still would like to highlight, so this is still ongoing. I mean, this concept, we definitely need to have more work on it, because if you pay attention, it's already several items out there, but it's still focused more on a biased activities. Because we already put in, right, the contents. Join a group for political reason, leave a group for political reasons, following page account related to political figures that I support, or unfollow the one I don't support. But we don't have like following those I don't support, right? We don't have like join a group that I don't like opposite viewpoint. So in all these items, we still focus on a more biased activities. So for this study, we used a Taiwan communication survey. So basically all the items, measures were originally in Chinese. And it is a two-way panel survey conducted in 2022 during the mayor election. Okay, so there's a lot of measures, and we used the news curations, some cross-cutting related measures, and then also the effective polarization. Okay. So we used a latent class analysis on all different curatorial behaviors. And after that, we found that there are 4 types of people out there. So the first one basically don't do anything. They are the non-selective engager, and it's very likely relate to the concept news find me. They just lay back, everything just come to them, they don't do anything. Okay, and the second group is the likers. So likers, personally, I feel it could be like social media lurkers. So you notice some people kind of just keep like everything. So this is like a low effort selective engagement, and then trying to show their presence on the social media platform. And then group 3, group 4, they are a bit more biased group, the selective avoiders and selective approachers. So for selective avoiders, they trying to filter out information. But at the same time, they will like something they support and dislike something they don't support. Okay, so but more they are about filter out stuff. And for the last group will be the selective approacher. So the selective approacher, more about filter in informations and also a lot of productive curatorial behavior, like they will comment, they will share, and they also they will like to like people's informations similar to their opinion. So interestingly, it could be because of the data. We didn't find a certain group that combined both avoiding and approaching. So this is something interesting. We have people who just keep filter out things, and another group is keep filtering in stuff. But there's a certain group that avoid and approach at the same time. So this is something I feel very interesting, and definitely we can replicate this study and trying to understand a little bit more different patterns in different society or different political context. So finally, after figure out those users, different type of user, we are trying to see, okay, what kind of social media use pattern, what kind of individual, like political predispositions may lead people to become certain type of users, okay? And then what will be the outcome, okay, the polarization. And then at the same time, we also tap into the motivation. So we create 2 different type of motivations, deliberative and defensive motivation, to understand whether people's motivations could affect their type or the way they curate information. So just to highlight here is about the motivations, because personally, a lot of my own research also examine motivations, because I think that there's no certain type of people always stay in the same way of actions. Often it's some kind of motivations because of certain time or certain situation. We may change our motivation so that the way we search information may change, and the way we process information may change. So in this study, we have the deliberative motivation, and we adapted from the need for cognition, because a need for cognition, if you use this measure, you may notice that it's kind of an also neutral one. Don't tap into the deliberative elements. So in here, we're trying to incorporate like people think about issue or making decisions to incorporate with different viewpoints, or they will try to understand different perspectives to reduce bias, or trying to understand issues comprehensively and deeply. And for the defensive motivations, a bit more like directional goal, directional motivation, like to defend themselves, to criticize others, or to persuade others. Some other motivation that I'm hoping that I can do it later on, but it is also some that I did in other study, like instrumental motivation. This social instrumental, not in this study that I'm sharing with you, but I do think that they are also very important to be examined in information processing and selection process. Okay, so in the end, we use this logistic regressions to predict different type of users. Okay, again, this different type of user, they do have certain combination of curatorial behavior. And we found that, yes, political strains can make people to become likers, avoiders, approachers. General news use also make more people to curate informations. Political information use will make people to like more informations and also approach more information, but not about avoiding information. Okay. Motivations also interesting is that deliberation motivation will make people to become be less likely to be avoiding information, avoiding non-like-minded information. But for defensive motivation, people will more likely to like information they prefer and also approach information they prefer. So I think this pattern is also very interesting. And again, because this is a group comparison, because we separate into 4 groups, so there we set the reference groups as the non-engagers. For the moderation effect in here is that deliberative motivation will make people to become less likely to be approacher even after they encounter cross-cutting political information. Okay, so I think it's very important for people when they encounter political information together with a deliberative motivation, then they will become less biased. But when it comes to defensive motivations, then yes, people will be more approaching to their own viewpoints, like-minded information. Okay, so the very last is to understand predicting the polarizations. And we also can see, because now we know the first part is that what will lead to different type of users. And then we can see, okay, how would users bring to the polarizations? And then we see that likers actually don't have any effect to the polarization. So liker is like what I mentioned, they could be just trying to show their presence and then just keep liking the information they prefer, but they are not that active compared to avoiders and approachers. So seems it's not significant related to the polarization. But avoiders and approachers, avoiding non-like-minded and approaching like-minded information will lead people to become more effectively polarized. And interestingly, because we control all other variables, and we also found that motivation continues to matters, not only affecting people to become certain type of curatorial group, they also continue to affect the polarization, that the deliberate motivation actually can decrease effective polarization. Okay, so this is the final outcomes that we examine in this study. So here I would like to bring to the very end the takeaways and also some food for thought. So throughout, there's several studies all tap into many different relationships. One antecedent, one outcome, and also the third one more about the classifications. What I would like to highlight is that we definitely need a better conceptualization and operationalization if we're trying to understand more about the curations on social media platform. And possibly there could be also some context difference because study 1 and 2 are in the US, study 3 we conducted in Taiwan. The media system, political system are, I would say, are rather similar, a very polarized society, political system. So it definitely worth to be examined in different kind of media context, media system context, or different kind of political system. Okay, and different social media platform, as I know, because we examine Facebook, okay, for the United States one, and for the Taiwan, the classification is more about general terms, asking about social media use. But definitely the motivation, social media platforms, we use it. We know that different countries use different type of social media platforms, and different platforms have different kind of affordance and curatorial functions. So this was to be examined a bit more. Okay. And I think very interesting is that motivations, because motivation seems to be a very strong factors in many different type of individual behaviors. So on our research, we found that motivation also matters a lot in terms of how people curate information and how it will lead to the final outcome. So that's why I also highlighted there are many different kind of motivations, so we should explore it a little bit more. Okay. And I think at the end, this is the final note that I would say, because at the end, I think it always comes to a fundamental questions. From the system, okay, from the platform, we could provide like nudges, like through browser or using AI, right, AI chatbot, to let people be aware of their media consumption or push more balanced information. But still, this is something probably a lot of platform, they wouldn't do it, right? And from a user's perspective, then algorithm literacy becomes very important. So not only being motivated to consume balanced information, but on the social media platform, users also need to be aware how algorithm functions. And because when they understand how these kind of algorithm functions, what kind of curatorial behavior they can have, they also may have a more positive attitude to this platform, and then understand how to curate an information that could lead to more balanced information environment. Okay, so this is also something that I would like to further explore to understand more about the user-driven intervention to the bias information processing on the social media platform. Okay, so that's it for my sharing for today.